Welcome to your Get That Nugget for GCSE English Literature. Today we're going to be focusing on giving you a framework to answer the unseen poetry question in paper 2. This session is here to complement your lessons with your teachers and not to replace them in any way. So the slight difference with the unseen poetry question is that you are not being assessed on AO3 at all because you have never seen this poem before. So the focus has to be on understanding the poem and looking at what the poet does in order to get their message across. Now, the unseen poetry question is split into two parts. The first part is the 24-mark essay question where you analyse the main poem. The second part is the 8-mark comparison. Now, what tends to happen, because students go into an exam and think that a comparison question needs to be bigger, they spend far too much time on an 8-mark question and not enough time on a 24-mark question. Your 24-mark question is essentially exactly the same as your literature essays across the rest of the exam, except that you don't have the 6 marks for context. So we're going to look at it in terms of list again. This is always how we're going to unpick poems. So the L is language, and you are looking at word classes. You are looking at the idea of semantic fields, specific words that are of interest or are unusual in some way. I is imagery, where we are looking at metaphors, similes, personification, essentially any type of figurative language. S, we are looking at structure, so we're going to be looking for rhyme, going to be looking for punctuation, going to be looking for narrative voice, and then T is for theme. What is the big idea of the poem? What is the key message? Now, none of that is exhaustive. There are more things that you can talk about in all of those categories, but this is how we are going to unpick those poems. So the first thing you need to do when you start this question is look at the question before you start reading the poem, because it will give you some direction as to what is expected of you. So in this case, how does the poet present their feelings about time in the following verse? So you know that as we read through, we are looking for anything that talks about the concept of time. So ticking away the moments that make up a dull day. This idea of time being wasted in some way. You fritter and waste the hours in an offhand way, kicking around on a piece of ground called your hometown, waiting for someone or something to show you the way. So already we have this sense that this poem is about wasting time, about not using time effectively. Tired of lying in the sunshine, staying home to watch the rain, but you are young and life is long and there is time to kill today. So this idea that time is plentiful when you are young. And then one day you find 10 years have got behind you. No one told you when to run, you missed the starting gun. This idea that life is a race in some way. So you run and you run to catch up with the sun, but it's sinking. That personification of the sun, because the sun represents the changing of days. Racing around to come up behind you again. The sun is the same in a relative way, but you're older, shorter of breath, and one day closer to death. That internal rhyme there that links the idea of breathing to life. Every year is getting shorter, never seem to find the time. Plans that either come to naught or half a page of scribbled lines. Hanging on in quiet desperation is the English way. The time is gone, the song is over, thought I'd have something more to say. So the end of this poem represents essentially death, and the idea that life has been wasted in some way, that he has nothing to show for his life. And so feelings about time is this idea that you need to grab hold of it, that we waste a lot of time, that we don't use time effectively. And so now that we've got that idea about the poem, now that we've got that in our heads, we need to look at what we would say in terms of language, imagery, structure and theme. So in terms of language, you have lots of verbs, but they are sort of inactive verbs, as in staying, lying, ticking, frittering. Okay, so you have this idea of the verbs representing wasting time, but because they are verbs, they are active, so there's that conflict between what you should be doing and what you are doing. In terms of imagery, you have the personification of the sun. So the sun represents time passing. Days passing. Almost as if you are in direct conflict with the sun. Structurally, you have that internal rhyme, which brings life and death into conflict. This idea that every minute that you are alive, every minute that you breathe, you are one moment closer to death. So there's that constant conflict of living your life and death coming ever closer. And then the main theme is about time wasted. What are we doing with time? Thought I'd have something more to say. This idea that his life has been wasted because he hasn't taken advantage of the time that is available to him. Now, once you have that, you are then going to have to write your 6-paragraph essay, introduction, 4 paragraphs, and your conclusion, just the same as you would do for the comparison poetry essay. So your introduction needs to include your thesis statement. So how does the poet present their feelings about time in the following verse? It's something we waste. Something we should use better. Something we don't appreciate when young. So from that, we need to come up with our thesis statement. So the poet presents the idea that we are in conflict with time. It continually passes. And we seem to waste it, as in youth, people feel as though they have lots of time. Okay, now from that, you would be able to weave in those 4 paragraphs about language, imagery, structure and theme, summarising it all in your conclusion by coming back to this thesis statement. In the next session, we're going to look at what that plan would actually look like, what we're saying in each paragraph. For now, please turn this thesis statement into an introduction. Once you've done that, please show it to your teacher and I'm sure they'll be happy to mark it for you.